Welcome to Hill Country Network. My name's Chuck Garrett, and today I have as my guest Mr. Jeff Olson. Jeff, welcome. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
Jeff is, as most of you know, a candidate for the Mississippi Senate. Jeff, how did you come to make a decision that you wanted to be a senator?
Well, it goes back several years ago. I was an alderman for the city of New Albany back in 2005.
Yes, sir.
Elected to it, luckily for 3 terms. But I never thought this vacancy would come up. I didn't think Nikki Browning would ever, I thought he had it, and when I heard that he was getting out of it, he was retiring, I immediately got my stuff and talked to Nikki and headed to Jackson and registered to get in the race. I just feel like with my municipal experience, it was just something that was a good opportunity to just be able to help more people.
Well, I congratulate you for the effort. I know it's not easy to get into it, and I know it's kind of a big step for you and your family, and so I wish you the best of luck in your efforts with it. Let's start a little bit by just kind of introducing you to our viewers. And I know most people around here know you, but this will give more people a chance to know you better.
All right.
Why don't you start by just kind of giving us a little information about you and your background and your family and all that kind of thing.
All righty. I have a daughter that's 22 years old. She went to Ole Miss. She graduated.
Congratulations,
well,
Dad.
thank you. And back in the day, I went to Mississippi State, got a degree in business and marketing. My late wife, Tracy, who was very instrumental in just with Kristen and just my life in general, she passed away at 38. Actually, 10 years this month, she had passed away from leukemia.
I remember that. That was terrible.
Again, I went to Mississippi State, went to W.P. Daniel High School here in New Albany. For 13 or 14 years, I've been a part of Baskin-Robbins franchise sales for Mississippi and Tennessee that dealt with marketing and sales. And then after that was over, I decided, I've always wanted to be a part of my own restaurant.
Okay.
And happened to have talks with a lady by the name of Angel Mueller and Tallahatchie Gourmet, and that's kind of how I evolved now. For 9 years now, been a part of a dynamic restaurant and catering company.
I was going to say Tallahatchie Gourmet's been a real success story. I mean, it grew from a very humble beginning, and it seems like every time I go in there, it's full.
Well, I tell you what, I think we have, at least in this district, I think we pretty much will have fed everybody in this three county area. But it has been a blessing. It started out, I came aboard in 2011, and I think the annual sales at the time were probably right at $480,000 a year. And we're well over $1 million in the New Albany location.
Really?
And we just opened up another location in Oxford 2 years ago this month.
I didn't know that.
Absolutely, it is really, we've been blessed.
Well,
but it's keeping us busy, though.
Well, congratulations.
Well, thank you.
You mentioned you graduated from W.P. Daniel or New Albany High School. What was kind of your niche in high school? I mean, athletics, clubs. What were some of the things you were involved in as you were growing up?
Well, when I look back, I look at how smart my daughter is. Academics, I wish I would have put a little bit more time in. How blessed you are to be able to get a good education. But as far as the people that I met and the teachers that, were so influential in my life, whether when I was on the golf team, we won the state championship, I ran cross country, different clubs, DECA, just being a part of the student body and being very involved. My time at W.P. Daniel was an incredible experience.
Look back, and a lot of folks see high school as their favorite time of life. Some college, some after college. So it sounds like high school was a wonderful time for you.
It was an absolute incredible time.
A lot of friends you still keep in touch
Absolutely.
with, and that's one of the nice things about a town like New Albany. A lot of the people, and one of the things that I know is a goal for everybody is that they want their sons and daughters to be able to grow up here and stay here. Mm-hmm. And I know that's something that the alderman and mayor have worked hard on, and back when I was superintendent, that was a big deal to me. I mean, we wanted to help support that kind of effort because it's a family town.
Mm-hmm. And the education system that we have here, and not only New Albany, in this district, is great. We're very fortunate with public schools.
I completely agree with that one. your educational background, you said New Albany and then, of course, Mississippi State. What clubs, organizations, churches, what's affiliations, that kind of thing?
Well, I've been for the First Methodist Church here in New Albany, since my parents moved here back in 1974. At Mississippi State, as far as affiliations, I was a fraternity, was Sigma Chi fraternity, and to this day, just the relationships that were built, the people that I met in college, you always have those friends that you can always fall back on or call if you got any questions, and it's amazing how you see them across the state.
Okay. Your work history, you talked a little bit about Tallahatchie Gourmet, you worked a little bit with 31 Flavors, what's that?
Yeah,
What's the right name?
Baskin Robbins.
It seems like I remember that the way that worked is you guys kind of set up in existing facilities or something like that. I never saw a Baskin Robbins store here, but I saw Baskin Robbins product here. How did that kind of?
Well, back in the day, what we did, this is Chuck, this is a long time ago.
That's okay.
But this was probably, I worked for them for 13 years, and my at the time, of course, real estate and people getting in the ice cream business, as far as profitability was, unless you're in Memphis or Tupelo or Columbus or Jackson or Memphis, Tennessee, it was hard. So what we started, we had a niche that at the time, all these convenience stores, these oil jobbers were building stores everywhere. So when we knew that with the brand Baskin Robbins, we knew that there was a niche that if we got in the convenience stores, we could grow the business.
Right.
So easily I've opened up over 100 Baskin Robbins at my time with Clink Brothers and Baskin Robbins, all over Tennessee and Arkansas and Mississippi. It's been great, and to this day, to go by and see a billboard, or go by and see a sign and see all the stores that are still open. Even the Cousins Texaco up in Holly Springs, that was the first franchise I ever sold, and it's still there. So it's
cool.
Fond memories, though.
That sounds really cool. Earlier you mentioned golf, playing in high school, and you won state, and I know that's no easy thing to do, but other recreational activities that you or your family might have been involved in over the years?
Well, what I love to do when I have time and the money is travel.
Okay.
It's just to experience this great country that we have, and whether it's going out to California or going to Washington or Washington D.C. or Key West, I'm not going to go. That's what my goal is, to experience what I can.
Okay.
And hopefully down the road, travel overseas and see some other interesting sites.
I spent a little bit of time in Salt Lake City recently, and it's it's a whole different world.
It is.
It's a whole different world.
That West is incredible.
Well, growing up, and you think back, who kind of had a positive impact on you, or who maybe kind of helped shape some of your thoughts and how you feel about the world, about life in general?
Well, I tell you what, that is a great question. Obviously, my mom and dad, of course, my brother, but I think 9 out of 10 people would honestly say this: your teachers when you were in school. I can literally name every single teacher from kindergarten through 12th grade.
Really?
That had huge impact in my life. Not only that, my church, from Sunday school, the youth ministers and all that through the years. And then, I've been fortunate with some very good friends. And, they've always encouraged and helped me. And any time I was down, they helped me. And I've been through some rough spots in life, and they've always, helped out.
Well, you're truly blessed to be able to say those kinds of things. Life experiences, we've talked kind of about the people. Have you had an experience you might relay as something that you learned from, or it shaped you? Or
Well, two things really. One, of course, my freshman year in college, I don't want to break down in front of the camera, but my freshman year in college, my dad was diagnosed with leukemia. So throughout my whole college career, we dealt with that. And again, that's where your friends and your family come in. It was a very trying time. He passed away about 2 years after he was diagnosed. And then the second one, I'll never forget, it was on my birthday, August 28th, when my wife, Tracy, she was diagnosed with leukemia, the exact same thing that my dad had. So that was in 2000. Kristen was 3 years old, and gosh, off and on with remission. I mean, 9 years later, in 2009, she passed away. But I guess that shaped me. You're down here, you're never guaranteed. Each
Right.
day is a blessing. I wish I would take that more when I get stressed out with work or in life in general. But I'm lucky to be in this area with the church family, the friends. It's just I cannot think of anywhere else I'd want to be. But those really were, it was a struggle. It was, there was times when you want to be bitter, but we know that they're in a better place, and that's our goal to go.
I know life's difficulties shape us, and right now, my dad lives with me, and he's been there 16. He's 91, and as they say, it takes a lot of courage to age, and just watching him go through that has changed me some. So I can't imagine what you dealt with and how you went through that. That had to be very difficult, and I appreciate you being willing to talk about it a little bit. If elected to the Senate, what type leader would you be?
Well, definitely I've learned that shut my mouth more and I listen.
Okay.
And the good thing about going into this, I'm not beholden to anyone. I'm going to represent the people of Benton, Pontotoc, and Union. And what my goal is to listen and to what they feel is important for me as I represent down in Jackson. That's what I'm there to do. I mean, my whole focus is the voters, the people in this district.
You've run for local office before, and I've never done something like that, and I've always kind of wondered, what's the driving force? But what caused you to want to be? Why are you running for the Senate?
I guess when I was being on the board, as we touched on a while ago, the Board of Aldermen New Albany, to get the satisfaction out of being able to help your community and to be able to make a difference. And again, from municipal level to the state level, it is a totally different, categories of interest as far as what people want. But to have 3 terms on the city council here in New Albany and to achieve what we did, when this position came available to run, to represent, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 54,000 people and to affect their lives, it will be a challenge, but I'm doing everything to prepare for it, to study up from even just as crazy things just like Senate rules or whatever, but I've built and established relationships with the legislators down there, and I just look forward to having that opportunity.
Sometimes, politicians get elected by the people, and then they go to the Senate or they go to the House, and there's a lot of peer pressure within the Senate. The Republican leadership would expect the Republicans to a lot of times vote a certain way, and there's always that. I've watched different politicians work with that. How would you balance their influence against the influence of your constituents with realistically your own ideas of what ought to be done?
Well,
How
first,
do you put all that together?
Well, first of all, my beliefs in what I do, at the end of the day, you have to represent your people. And Union, Pontotoc, and Benton, that's who I represent. I don't feel like you have to go down to Jackson, feel like you're going to save the world in one term, and I don't think it's healthy to be a rogue senator and
become isolated sometimes.
You just have to, it is a little bit, that's why it's called politics. It is a little bit of gamesmanship. It is that. You have to give up a little bit to get this. But one thing I emphasize is that at the end of the day, it's the voters that I represent in this district. Now, obviously, we want them to make the whole state of Mississippi better.
Right.
That's the ultimate goal for our state. Let's get out from being 48th, 49th, and 50th in the country. Let's move up, and let's make our place and get more people, to move to Mississippi that want to live here.
I've heard people say they hate politics. but the whole democratic idea required it. I mean, there's no dictators, there's nobody who is king, and so everything becomes, checks and balances and all the other things we got going. It becomes, I guess, relationships and politics, and it's kind of a fluid kind of thing, maybe.
That's what life is. I mean, life is all about relationships.
Well, are there any particular issues that you go down there that you think, I'd kind of like to be on that committee, or I have an interest in how that works, or do you go down there with any kind of those thoughts, or?
Of course, the lieutenant governor pretty much he will sign. If I'm fortunate enough to get down there, he will sign which committee.
Right.
But one definite that I would love to be on is highways and transportation. The highway committee, and then economic development for sure. And whether I'm on county affairs or municipalities, anything like that, because we're all going to be on either a finance or appropriations, committees, one of those two. But I guess if I had those 3 or 4 things would be great.
So when you talk about highways and that kind of thing, or economic development, what would you see as maybe something you'd like to try to do, or something you'd like to support, or do you think we're basically doing it right by giving tax breaks and incentives and all this kind of things, or how do you view all that?
Well, I
as
think
a businessman who did it probably by yourself, you probably didn't get a lot of state help to set up your business. How would you?
Well, I was lucky in that situation where Angel, she worked with Three Rivers, which was, I cannot tell you how important Three Rivers Plan of Development with Randy Kelly and his staff have been, not only when I was an alderman for the city of New Albany, but also from a small business standpoint. Just getting the funding and getting the loans they're very valuable to us. But I guess when you say, first you alluded to highways and transportation. Right. Obviously there's the gentleman by the name of John David Pennebaker who, I wish he was still here so I could ask him questions. But a super individual. But for him and Billy McCoy, who were instrumental in overriding the veto and getting the 1987 legislation as far as the highway program.
Right.
And right now we're kind of at a standstill. And when we talk about economic development and everything, you got to have roads, you got to have bridges, you got to have to move the goods and services throughout the state. And when businesses or companies like Toyota and all that, they have what they require that they need.
Right.
And as you can see, the infrastructure we had to build out at Toyota and Blue Springs was substantial.
Interstate 22.
But I'm very
among other things. Go ahead.
I'm concerned that we don't have anything in place. I'm concerned that, and I realize with 122 representatives and 52 senators, not everybody agrees the path to take and how to fund it.
Right.
But my definite primary goal down there is to get a plan in place and work with the other legislators and figure out how we can get something and set it and do it. Because with kicking the ball down the road, or kicking the can down the road, it's not going to work. We're
all right. I appreciate it. If elected, okay, your constituents choose you, you're elected. Mm-hmm. How would you communicate with them as a senator?
Well, first thing my daughter would tell me, Kristen, that, Dad, you need to get up on social media. I'm not real good at Twitter and Facebook, but I'm getting a PhD in it right now. But, the biggest thing with the constituents is when you're called upon to speak, whether it's at a Rotary event or Kiwanis or a pilot club, a school, obviously everybody can, if they come down and eat, they can meet me at the restaurant. They can call me on the phone. That's as being a elected official, accessibility that's probably one of the most important things. Right. For people to be able to feel like, hey, that gentleman, he's representing me. I like Jeff.
And I've never been a politician, but I can picture this. One person calls you and they're 100% for what you just did, and the other one calls you and they're 100% mad about what you just did. And there has to you probably bumped into that as an alderman.
Well, I tell you what, as an alderman, we have left meetings when we left, and I'll never forget Johnny Anderson saying, Well, that's the first time we've made 100% people mad on that one. So we there's sometimes you just don't win.
I understand. How would you, going down there, what would be your approach to your colleagues?
Fortunately, even before I knew the situation was going to be available for Senate, I do have friends that are down there now. Representative Jody Steverson from Tippah County, Steve Massengill from Benton, both Republicans. But I just made a point to every year to go down during the session, roam the halls, talk, sit in, and just listen. And I just feel like it's just, you got to know who you're working with, and you have to have established the relationships with them. I just kind of try to get ahead of the game, and whether they're in the House or in the Senate, I've established many, and even in the departments, the relationships.
Having run some other campaigns, how is your campaign being funded for the Senate?
Good friends and family, and a little bit of my own money. So,
kind of a personal thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
A lot of my own money.
A committee of the willing, so to speak. Changing the subject kind of to education. This year the teachers got a $1,500 raise. That makes us still 50th, but and in some ways, I think some legislators were bothered that there weren't enough thank you notes sent out over it, because I think some thought it was too little. I know teacher assistants also got a raise, and for them it was about a 10% raise, because their salaries for a year run between $13,000–15,000 a year. So $1,500 is a good raise. How did you view all that?
The teachers are, without a doubt, if you really think about things, they're kind of like, in a sense, hospitals, when you have nurses that take care of the patients. The teachers teach, and you have administrators. You have people like you back in your day, but the teachers, and I know we have people for public schools, and we have people with private with vouchers and all that, and that's just something that's going to definitely be on the forefront coming up. But without a doubt, and this is not just from a political speak or whatever we need to do is teacher pay, is to get it where it needs to be. But the key is like Senator McMahon said, he had a good write-up in the Daily Journal. By law, the state we have to balance the budget. We can't really kind of be like the federal government and just keep borrowing. With a $6.5 billion budget, there's a lot of agencies and entities that have their hands in the till. But at the end of the day, when we talk about transportation, we talk about bridges and highways and all that, and we talk about education, I think we get the bang for our buck if we pay the teachers what they truly are worth, and find the money and do it. Now, you do have to take from other entities, which is a challenge. It is a challenge. But how much priority are we as a state, being 49th or 50th, like you said a while ago? When are we going to realize that our best resource for training our young people, educating them, are the teachers?
And I think most people know that, like you mentioned, that we're from an area where public education is strong. There are other areas where it's weaker. And I think sometimes where it's weaker, people use those areas to defend, well, I don't want to waste money, look what they're doing with it, kind of thing. I've always thought if we could in any way be kind of specific, let's say more money was in education, but it was for specific things that the legislature valued, and it was dependent on maybe certain things happening to have it happen. I think I understand not wanting to pour more money down the drain that's not producing results. And I think, but anyway, I've always thought the best way to try to spend more money in education was to have it earmarked in a way that it was very, very accountable.
Right.
And so, but anyway, state testing. The kids take a lot of state tests nowadays. And we gear more and more instruction toward what is going to be tested. I mean, which isn't all that unusual. If you're going to take the bar in law school, you get ready for the things that you think are going to be included in the bar. Or a driver's test, you want to learn what's going to be on the driver's test.
Right.
Well, but in education, we kind of end up getting so focused that I'm not sure, we don't quite have the breadth and the width of things that we used to do.
Well, I'd like to see, and there's a lot of people that are a lot smarter than me as far as
Yes,
in education. But, back when I was growing up and I was in elementary school and, had a couple recesses every day and got to, the interaction with the other students and just being a kid.
Yep.
I'm afraid now, and I don't know if this is the best way to say it, but just sometimes we might be getting a little bit too cute with what we're doing to try to come up with, mathematical scores for people. And I just think that if we could possibly just get back to letting the teachers teach. And not only that, but even from a level of just, we're like, school districts such as Pontotoc and New Albany, and just being able to have a little bit more, the school districts have more autonomy and being a little bit more flexible with what they do. Because, your own local district and has that, everybody I think around the state is going to be a little bit different. And I think the school boards and the administration, they know, what the students need. They're a little bit more, and they work with the teachers and let the teachers teach.
And I'll add one thing to that. Today, unfortunately, for a lot of people, the definition of a good teacher is a teacher who can provide an A school. If your teacher's providing a school that's rated A, you have good teachers. I mean, when they interview, people look at their test scores. Did this teacher provide an A? Did they? And there's a lot more to it than that. I mean, that's important. Having the kids learn is really important. But I don't think that's necessarily why you remember your teachers in K-12 with so much fondness. I think it was personal.
Absolutely.
And it needs to be personal. Is that?
I agree, and I think from my generation in school, I think a lot of my friends have turned out very, very well.
Well, yeah. I mean, because you were. Anyway, we're saying. I think we're saying similar things on all this. I guess going back to you mentioning business and industry, how would you approach attracting new businesses to New Albany, Union County, the state of Mississippi?
Well, just like we did when I was on the board of aldermen in New Albany, you take advantage of the entities in place with the Mississippi Development Authority, with the Glenn McCullough Appalachian Regional Commission with Mike Armour.
Right.
You're not only from the governor down in the state, people, but also in Washington, and the great thing about Mississippi is every area, wants to recruit a big Toyota or whatever. Not everyone gets it. We were lucky with Three Rivers and Community Development Foundation, when we had the pull alliance, from Union and Lee and Pontotoc counties, and went after that big, supplier. And we were very fortunate with the leadership that we had. And at the time, my hat's off to the county supervisors, to borrow money, much money, as an alderman, we would pass a resolution supporting it. But, we're not on the line for it. But back then, great leadership, and I tell you, the Toyota deal has been great. But you have to take advantage of the resources, and, your Three Rivers and with Randy Kelly, you have to, the people are in place. But all through the state, you have to have, like UCDA here in Union County,
right.
And then you have, people in Pontotoc and Benton, but you have to have that effective leadership in the community that, the people that get involved, whether it's the local banks or whatever, and the people that really care about their community, that's what it's about. And you open with, less regulations, and you welcome, and you go out and you actively recruit. And who wants to come, if you don't have a good school system, you don't have good health care, you don't have good infrastructure, you don't have good neighborhoods, what business or corporation wants to settle? But we're fortunate that we do have that in this district.
Right.
We're very fortunate.
I agree. And I would say one thing about those county supervisors we talked about politics a little while ago. They put themselves on
They
the
did.
line with that.
Hats off to them.
That was one
They
of the
did.
most heroic political kinds of things I think I've ever read about or heard about.
Just the whole process when it started, just to going and getting updates, and Toyota was coming, Toyota's not coming, but it was turned out great.
Well, I got two more things for you.
Okay, all right.
And then we're going to have to.
Let me get a little swig of water.
No, we have. Go right ahead. We're about out of time. The first one is has to do with, some states are growing because they really draw population. Other states are not. Mississippi's kind of flat. Our population numbers for a decade have been from what I understand, they've been very consistent, and they haven't really grown. They haven't really shrunk. They're just kind of the same. Does Mississippi need to attract people? What do we need to do if we need to attract people? How do you see that?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I read something the other day that we actually we lost like 3,600 people in the past year or 2 years, something like that. But obviously, if you're not growing, you're dying. And being status quo and being level growth, we need to do a better job of selling Mississippi and what we offer. The biggest thing we have, really truly, is the cost of living is definitely probably one of the lowest in the nation.
Right. That's what.
But again, recruiting. I think the leadership. The Republican leadership is definitely, we're on the right track far as recruiting businesses with economic development projects.
We're talking about business and industry a little bit, and I know that you've been following some articles and this kind of thing. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've learned?
Well, I tell you what, I love to read. I love the Wall Street Journal. Love anything on the web that just has, information that we can that I could utilize down the road when I represent this district. But I think it had a really good article in Utah, and that the state of Utah is, from the past 10 years, has really been, the economic growth has been incredible. But there's something that was in this article is pretty, it's just common sense, but it's the truth. Economic growth is a function of gains in the number of workers and their productivity. More workers mean more output, income, and consumer spending. These trends, in turn, attract more employers and workers, fueling a virtuous cycle of growth. On into the article, and I don't want to read the whole article for you, but it just says we talked about economic development, everything from the state, but many factors affect growth, including business regulation, access to financing, and the quality of education institutions. Employers are saying that Utah is attractive on those fronts. But as analysis agree that for the U.S. economy to expand faster, it's going to need more workers. And again, that goes back to Mississippi. We just need more workers and more people coming in. Without people, you can't have jobs, and without jobs, you can't have an economy.
Right.
It's that simple. As somebody once said a long time ago, it's the economy, stupid, and that's what drives.
Well, we're about out of time, so I'll just kind of ask you this question. Is there anything you'd like to say as we get ready to kind of go off the air?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm excited to started January 11th when I got in to the race, went to Jackson. I'm putting everything in place as far as with the restaurant, Tallahatchie Gourmet, so I can get out, and I look forward to continuing to meet the people in this district. And for the next 3 or 4 months, I will be in your community, and I hope that you will see me that the choice for District 3 Senate for Benton, Pontotoc, and Union counties. Well, thanks for giving me an opportunity to be here.
Well, I appreciate you being with us today. Thank you a lot. And for Hill Country Network, this is Chuck Garrett saying thanks for watching.